What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. We've got a good one for you guys today. ETR has been kind enough to sponsor today's video along with the next 4 to 5 Friday videos. They are a site that I trust the most when looking for a second opinion, and their track record of success is honestly unreal. I'm sure you guys have heard of Silva and Levitan, but the whole team they've put together over there is just fantastic, and I absolutely trust the content they're putting out. I'm trusting that it's quality content backed by data. Those are things we love to see on this channel. So what we're going to do over the next month or so is look at current ADPs using my rankings along with Silva's top 150 and the ETR team's projections to identify the best and worst picks in drafts. We're trying to make this very, very actionable information, because it's one thing to kind of talk about players in theory, but for us to just say, okay, here are the ADPs, here are the rankings, here's who we're drafting, here's who we're not drafting, that is a lot better for you guys, a lot more actionable. And it's great to, look at multiple rankings here, because if I think someone's overvalued, Silva does as well, and Leone's projections agree, then we can feel pretty good about fading that player in drafts. If you want to see more of their content, and you should, because, not only is it really good, but you should have multiple sources for information. You can check out their YouTube channel. Pretty easy to find it in the search bar. Just type in Establish the Run, or I'll link it in the description as well to make it very easy for you guys to find that. And if you want to check out their website and you want to sign up for one of their packages, use promo code FFA. You're going to get 10% off whichever one you choose. I would recommend signing up for something that has the preseason DFS, because they are the industry leader in preseason DFS content, and you're going to win if you use them for that. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when that comes along. You can use it for any package that you want. So, looking at everyone's rankings, I've gathered a fade list of 8 players, 3 wide receivers, 4 running backs, 1 tight end. Quarterbacks don't make the list because I think quarterback rankings, pretty much everyone can agree they're pretty accurate this season. We kind of know who the top end quarterbacks are, who the mid-range quarterbacks are, who the lower end guys are, and we're not overly concerned about ADP. We're just trying to sit back, relax, try and find someone in the middle rounds, but really just get the best value possible. So who made the list at the other positions? We'll start off with wide receivers, and the first name up is Brandon Aiyuk. My rankings have him as the wide receiver 48. ETR has him at 43. And when I say ETR in all of these, it means the ETR projections. They have the Silva top 150. That's Evan Silva's personal top 150. Then they have the projection team going in and doing their own, I think it's top 300 based on their projections. There are 2 different rankings. And again, if someone's below ADP, in mine, the projections, and Silva, we have a pretty good understanding that maybe they're being drafted a little bit too high. So ETR's projection team has him at 43. Silva has him at 52. Underdog ADP for him is 43. And then the composite ADP is 38. And he's a particularly bad value on NFL.com and on Sleeper right now. Now, all of you know that I'm actually a fan of Aiyuk. I think he is a quality prospect. I guess we can still call him a prospect in year 3 now, but a quality young wide receiver. But Shanahan does not agree with me, and it is just tough to envision, even if Shanahan likes him a little bit more this season, it's tough to envision him really paying off his ADP and really surpassing his ADP, because that's what we'd prefer from players, is they not only match their ADP, but they surpass it. They do a lot better. Debo is the clear number 1, and while it hasn't happened yet, they're gonna for sure get a deal done. At least as of recording this, it is entirely possible. This video gets posted on Friday. It's Wednesday right now. Certainly possible to get a deal done before then, but it's gonna happen. There's no way they enter the season with no deal done for Debo. So throw that out. That's not even a possibility. So at best, Aiyuk is the number 2, which is honestly fine on most offenses, but San Fran is gonna run the ball a billion times this season, and they'll be especially run heavy in the red zone. Not only are they going to have running backs run it in, receive the ball there, but Lance as well. And not only is Lance going to get designed quarterback runs, that's something we look at for certain teams is, okay, what's the touchdown potential of this receiving core? Well, if the quarterback could run in, I mean, realistically, Lance could have 10 to 12 rushing touchdowns this season. That takes away from the receiving upside of all the receiving talent. And then you think about it, it's not even designed runs, it's quarterback scrambles. Even when they have that low percent of the time that they're throwing it, he might still run the ball anyways, turning dropbacks into rush attempts. I'm just envisioning a scenario where the total pass attempts of this offense is much lower than people are expecting. And then when they do throw the ball, Debo's the first read, Kittle will be involved, and then you have Aiyuk. And it's like, how is he going to have a dominant season? He needs what it seems like multiple injuries. And I'm not going to bet on what is a mid-round wide receiver that needs multiple injuries to outperform their ADP. So I don't see enough upside at the wide receiver 38 consensus ADP. So I'm out on him. Next up, Amari Cooper. My rank 32, ETR 29, Silva 33, Underdog ADP is 31, consensus ADP 22, which is wild and absolutely too early. Another one that on NFL.com and Sleeper is going much too early. Now, obviously a lot here hinges on Deshaun Watson, but realistically, I expect to be below ADP no matter what happens with Watson. Like, let's just say that there's a 0-game suspension. That's not going to happen, but let's just say that happens. I think that Cooper's ADP skyrockets, and then I would expect myself to be below ADP when that happens. Conversely, if he's suspended for the whole season, I expect his ADP to drop, but I still expect at that point to be below ADP. I think that he is a quality wide receiver, but, he's by no means elite. As for Matt Harmon over reception perception, a fantastic resource, Cooper had a 26th percentile success rate versus man, 27th percentile success rate versus zone, 36th percentile success rate versus the press. And while he was great at running deep routes, that's honestly all he's good at. He wasn't very good at anything else. So he can get loose deep. He can run a post, a go route, a corner route, but he's not that fantastic. He's very overrated at his ability to beat man coverage, beat zone coverage, beat press coverage. He's not like a true number 1 X receiver. And I think that's what everyone assumes he's going to be, have this massive target share, this high touchdown ceiling. And again, even if Watson plays more than we think, I just think people are going to overrate the talent of Amari Cooper. And so I'm going to be lower on him. And I like that ETR's projections and Silva agree, also having him below ADP, because I expect to be at that point all summer, being below ADP no matter where he is. The final wide receiver goal of today is Mecole Hardman. My rank, wide receiver 67, ETR 62, Silva 56. On Underdog, he's 57, and consensus ADPs among all sites, 51. I just don't envision a world where you're starting Mecole Hardman season long. You can make the argument, and I do think it's fine, on Underdog if you want to take Mecole Hardman, right? You're drafting 8 to 10 wide receivers. You're fine if he only goes off for 3 weeks, and you'll capture that upside when it happens. So on Underdog, sure, I think that's fine. But the composite ADP here of 51 makes no sense to me. Not only, and most of you play in redraft leagues anyway, so this advice is tailored to you. Not only are all of Juju, MVS, Sky Moore just better receivers. I think at this point we can just say Sky Moore's a better receiver, even not knowing that much about him. Like, we just know Mecole Hardman is not that good. But Kelsey's also going to maintain a massive target share. The running backs are still going to get plenty of targets. And they've openly talked about how they want to spread the ball around a ton. So there is no world where Mecole Hardman sees this spike in targets. He's still just going to be a rotational piece, and I still think he's the 4th best wide receiver on this team. So sure, he can have a few games where he catches a long touchdown, but there will be a ton of snaps where he doesn't even see the field. And when he does get onto the field, the target share is going to be incredibly low. So he's going to have a ton of games with 2, 3, maybe 4 targets, the occasional spike. But in no world, even with probably multiple injuries, will you be able to start Mecole Hardman in a season-long fantasy format. And if that's the case, there's no point in drafting him in a season-long league. So I'd fade him as well. On to the running backs, where I've got 4 names for you. And we'll start off with Josh Jacobs, my running back 25, ETR at 24, Silva at 28, Underdog and consensus ADP have him at 22. Now, like I said, a few minutes ago, I have to record these videos a few days ahead of time, usually 2 days each week. So I'm recording this on Wednesday for a Friday morning upload. And I personally have not seen Zamir White show up to camp, nor have I seen any sort of explanation as to why he is not there. I'm recording this at 12:12 in the afternoon, Eastern time on Wednesday. And right before I hit record, I had not seen any news as to why he is not at camp. So that would not be a fantastic start for Zamir, and it would be in favor of Jacobs. Like, if Zamir is missing camp, there's got to be some sort of reason for it, and that's good news for Jacobs. But assuming at the end of the day, when we're in mid-August, we look back at this and we say, oh, it was just this, Zamir White's at practice, Zamir White is fine. I think people are going to be disappointed with Jacobs this season in the same way that they've been frustrated with the Patriots running backs in the past. It's already been reported that the Raiders are going to use a situational committee. That just means committee, giving people roles, your goal line back, your early down back, your third down back, like just giving people a role in the offense and rotating through those different roles. So we could see a world where Jacobs and Zamir White rotate through early downs. I do not think this season, unless Jacobs get injured, that they're splitting like Stevenson and Harris were last season, and we'll get to Harris in a second here. I don't see a role where they're splitting 1-for-1 in the drives. I do still think Jacobs is going to maintain that clear role, but I think they're going to rotate White in. White can be a phenomenal goal line back. It's possible he steals that role. Drake is obviously going to mix in on passing downs under this scenario, and we would really just be begging the Raiders again to use Jacobs, more in the receiving game. And if there was ever a year where that's not going to happen, it's probably this year. It's probably the year where they bring someone in who has a history of using a pure third down back. And they have one in Drake, and they've never done it with Jacobs. So why would this be the year they start? And since joining the league, he's been the running back 13, 14, and 18 and half PPR points per game. So a slight discount right now is what we're getting, but you don't win your leagues drafting someone as a low-end running back 2 and having them finish as a mid-range running back 2. You win it with ceiling seasons, and I just can't envision seeing Jacobs having that ceiling season under this system. If it does end up happening, and maybe this will be different come the end of August, we can kind of adjust things. But what it seems like right now is they're going to have that rotation in the committee, and if that happens, I don't see a world where Jacobs is putting up mid to low end running back 1 numbers, which is what you would want to have if you're drafting someone in this range. Next up on the fade list, Damien Harris. We said we'd get to him. My rank, running back 32 to go into the video, but I believe on the unposted rankings that I will post later this afternoon, he's all the way down at running back 36 now. ETR has him at 30, Silva has him at 32. Underdog, though, he goes 29th. Composite ADP, he is 27th. And it's honestly a very similar story. I mean, Harris had 15 rushing touchdowns last season and was still only 15th in fantasy points per game. He would have needed 17 touchdowns to be a low-end running back 1, and that is a lot to ask from a running back. Add in some more bad news. We open up camp today, and who's getting these first-team reps? It's Stevenson. Who's getting dump-offs? It's Stevenson. We know that Harris has 0 receiving upside. He is not going to be used in the passing game. Not only do they have White, but if White isn't healthy enough to go this season, they drafted the replacement to White in Pierre Strong. So they've got that pass catching specialist. They've got Stevenson, who's significantly better in the passing game than Harris is. There's no world he has that increase. And if this dude needs to have 15 touchdowns just to be a mid-range 2, then we can't really be drafting him in the middle rounds because he needs to get incredibly lucky. And honestly, I think that Stevenson is a better running back than Harris. We could see a situation where it's Stevenson getting more of the carries, more of the goal line work this season, more of these receptions, and Harris is just rotated in as that like secondary back, and he's not even useful in fantasy. Because if you go look at his box scores over his career, he basically has 0 games where he had a good fantasy outcome when he didn't score a touchdown. And if he's going to drop in touchdowns from like 15 down to like 7 or 8, which is still a pretty high number for a running back, his value tanks. And there'd be so many weeks where you're just furious because he has 2 fantasy points because he didn't score a touchdown. So I absolutely cannot see myself drafting Harris this season. I think you need to be all over Stevenson instead. Next player on the fade list is Devin Singletary. My rank running back 38. ETR has him at 33. Silva down at 44. I think Silva's very high on James Cook. Underdog ADP, running back 33. Composite ADP, running back 29. I just don't see it. It's again, another similar story. It's like, can you identify running backs who had early down production and maybe touchdowns last season, but you look at their role this year and you're like, okay, this is different, but people are drafting them in the same way. I mean, Singletary was awful for most of last year, but then, of course, at the end of the year, what people remember, he performed really well over the last 6 games, including the playoffs, because he never came off the field. But he's going to go back to what he did to start last season, where he was the running back 39 overall and 54 in fantasy points per game through week 13, because there's just no world where he has this like 90-95% snap share of the season. I mean, the Bills were aggressive in trying to steal McKissick from the Commanders. Then that didn't work, and they're like, okay, well, I guess we'll draft the best pass catching back in the draft class in James Cook. Like, no way they're going to give Singletary, who's like historically inefficient as a receiver, passing down snaps over James Cook. And when you consider how often this team passes the ball, how willing this team is to completely abandon the run, there's no case for upside for Singletary unless James Cook gets hurt. I'm not taking a running back in these like mid to later rounds that needs their backup to get hurt for them to outperform their ADP. That just makes no sense. Final running back on the fade list is Mecole Carter. This is a pretty easy one. My rank running back 63, ETR 57, Silva 62, Underdog though 54, composite ADP across all sites, running back 48. That makes no sense. Like I said, pretty simple. Everyone's projecting Breece Hall to be the clear lead back. Maybe not in week 1, but by midway point of the season, by the end of the season when things really matter, Breece Hall is going to be the lead back. And so that just doesn't leave any room for Carter to, it's even beat ADP. It's like, even if at 48 he returns value to ADP, you're not even starting that. Like there's no way. You need an injury. So he is a pure handcuff. This is a pure handcuff on the Jets, okay? And you're drafting him basically at one of the earliest parts for handcuffs. So you're saying he's a premier handcuff, but he's like a good talent, but not an elite talent. Hasn't proven that he's going to get, a featured role, even if, Breece Hall got hurt on the Jets. No, I'm not spending the 48th running back pick on that. Absolutely no way. Final player we'll go over today is Pat Freiermuth. My rank has him as the tight end 14. ETR has him at 17 for their projections. Silva has him at 14 as well. Underdog ADP 12. Composite ADP 11. I think the public is just falling in love with the player here and not taking into account the offense. Like Pat was fantastic as a rookie, finished 16th in fantasy points per game, 12th in receptions among tight ends, but of course he had the low rate off from last season. But that was on a Steelers offense that ranked 4th in pass attempts per game with a quarterback that couldn't throw the ball more than 3 feet downfield. So of course we're going to have Pat getting a ton of receptions. But the Steelers are not going to be as pass heavy this season, and they're at least going to try and push the ball downfield. We'll see how much that works, but they're at least going to try and do that. And we should consider that he finished 6th among all tight ends in touchdowns last season, ahead of Kittle, ahead of Waller, Gronk, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson, and sure, he could do that again, but it's relatively unlikely he's going to lead that group in receiving touchdowns. I would be fine with Pat, exactly where I have him ranked, with the preference to getting him at a value. So if his ADP was 14 and he slipped to 16, 17, I'll take that. Absolutely. He'll be a value at that point. But what seems to always happen is his ADP right now is 11. Maybe occasionally I can get him at value at 14. And I don't know, like I don't want to draft a tight end late at value, especially when my projections basically have him projected exactly the same as the tight ends that go multiple rounds later. So why take him at 14? You can get someone at like 17 or 18 that's basically the same pick. And if we're just stacking late tight ends anyways, if you're really going into this range, then don't spend the earlier pick on Pat, right? Because the only scenarios you have here are you took one early and maybe, or you took one earlier middle and maybe you want one late. Well, wait a little bit longer and go with someone later. Or you want to double dip late, in which case you probably want both of them to come into value. You probably want both of them to be really late, and so don't take Pat. So it's like every scenario, it just doesn't make sense to draft him where he's going, and he'd still need to be a value in the draft, fall a little bit to even be a neutral value. Even at that point, if I don't like him that much, it's just not worth it. So that is the FFA and ETR fade list for you. Again, ETR is going to sponsor the next like 4 to 5 Friday videos, and we're going to be using their rankings in conjunction with mine to come up with the most actionable advice as possible. I trust the team over there more than any other website, and you should be getting your information from multiple sources, not just focusing on information from me. So I highly recommend you check out their YouTube channel. Again, I'll link that in the description box down below. And if you want to sign up for any of the packages on their website, you can use promo code FFA. That'll get you 10% off whichever one you choose. I'll be back tomorrow to go over the biggest ADP changes of the last week, Sunday to talk about my favorite underdog draft strategies, and then Monday for another episode of Mock Draft Monday. But that, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.